Hi, everyone. I'm Sunshine Jackson, and thank you for joining me for the Sunshine Sessions. Tonight, I would like to talk about something that has been on my mind as a result of some experiences that I've had as of late. I want to talk about marriage, particularly, is marriage the new single? Let's discuss. The reason that I want to speak on this topic is um, I've had a few incidents where I've been hit on by some gentlemen who I found out were married. I think what struck me as the most strange is that these gentlemen were very comfortable in approaching me, even though they were married. Now, what I found even more interesting is that each gentleman was at a different stage in his marriage. One was recently wed, which I found, I think, the most bizarre. It's like you should still be in your honeymoon phase. Although I've never been married, I would think that so early on in the marriage, you would still just be basking in the glow of being with the person that you recently took vows with and the person that you promised to spend the rest of your life with. So I just found it very strange that someone that early on would be looking to step out in his marriage. Now, I am the most non judgmental person in the world. However, I've never been with a married man, and although I never say never, I strongly doubt that I would ever knowingly be in that situation based on how I feel about marriage. I know people have different beliefs, and that's okay. I just thought it to be interesting and again strange how different men in different phases of marriage felt so comfortable with seeking someone else outside of their marriage. And I think it's interesting. And the reason I posed the question, um, is marriage the new single, is exactly for that reason. Have vows really become antiquated? Are people serious about their vows anymore? I don't know. What do you think about people who choose or decide together as a couple to invite a third party into the marriage, or a couple who decides together that they are okay with each seeing different people? I think that would be a different um, a different set of rules and a different circumstance, all of which I want you to consider while we talk about this. So, anyway, the first gentleman that I met, as I stated, was recently wed, and I just felt it bizarre. Like, if you're stepping out that soon in your marriage, what's to come next? Like, where do you go from there? I don't know. Another thing we can ask is, do men cheat more than women? Do women cheat more than men, or about the same? Or do men and women just cheat differently? These are all questions that I find interesting, um, based on, as I've stated, some interactions that I've recently had. Now, the second gentleman that approached me was an older gentleman. He had been married for a while. He told me that he and his wife had an agreement. And so I was interested in hearing what that agreement was. So I asked him if he could elaborate for me, and he did. Now, according to him, his wife is suffering from or with multiple sclerosis, or MS. His wife is currently suffering with multiple sclerosis. And according to him, the agreement is he can go out, have fun, do his thing, and his wife is okay with it. I don't know if it's strictly because of the disease, the affliction, I should say, or I don't know if it's because of the amount of years that they've been married. I think he stated over 25 years or around that time. Or is it a combination of both? I was so fascinated, but at the same time, I do admit that I was a little appalled. And as I stated, I try my best to be as open minded as possible, but it just made me a little uncomfortable because I'm not interested in seeing someone's husband. Again, let me state that he said that they have that understanding. To be honest with you, I didn't completely believe him. I do know, however, that he was quite comfortable approaching me and telling me that story. So I'm thinking one of two things. The most far-fetched of things, and maybe not so far-fetched, he could be telling the truth. The second thing is he could be lying, and the reason it flows so well off his tongue is because he's done it so often, which in turn would also mean that's why he's so comfortable, or at least was so comfortable approaching me, because it wasn't his first time doing that. It wasn't his first time doing that. That was the second scenario. And the third situation was a gentleman who we struck up a conversation. Nice guy, very nice looking. It was at a social that I went to. I have a friend who owns a sports bar and a lounge, and I was there for one of his social gatherings, and I met a very nice looking gentleman. He approached me, which is usually the way it is, and don't take that the wrong way. I'm just saying I don't um, feel very comfortable approaching men, so typically it's the other way around. So I was sitting there, and he came and he asked if he could sit next to me, and I said sure. The seat was available. We struck up a conversation. Very nice looking gentleman, beautiful eyes. Um, Interesting conversation, very good conversationalist. Told me about himself, military, had recently relocated to the area, told me that he had been married, that he was divorced, and that he had two children. I'm sorry, one child, and that he did not want any more children. I said, okay, that's interesting. I don't have any, so if I meet someone starting a family, whether adoption or whatever, is an option for me. So, but we continued to talk. I admit the conversation was fantastic. It was the best conversation I had had in a long time, and I was quite interested in getting to know more about him. Well, this gentleman, after the conversation, I noticed that he got a little bit more assertive with his approach, and asked if I was actually open to being with him that night, if you know what I mean. And I was like, well, no, I don't move that quickly. We just met. I don't know you, so I'm not comfortable um, engaging in any type of intimate act with you because we don't know each other. And so we talked before he asked or suggested that we get to know each other in that sense. We had already exchanged numbers. And I was thinking, I don't know if I'll talk to him again. And then on the other hand, I thought, well, the only way that he would know if I were up for doing what he asked or suggested is either I would have to tell him and suggest that myself, or he would have to ask me and find out yes or no. So after I thought about it that way, I said, okay, well, I won't be too hard on him because he did what he felt he had to do in order to find out the information that he wanted. He asked, even though the answer was no. So I said, well, I'll tell you what, we've exchanged numbers already. Let's just stay in touch. I enjoyed the conversation. Maybe we can talk a little bit tomorrow or, later in the week. He said, okay. Walked me to my car. We said goodnight after we talked a little bit longer, and we went on our way. He texted me and told me that he enjoyed the conversation, which I thought was really sweet. I replied that I did as well. And he asked me, had I made it home safely? I told him yes. And again, I thought that was very considerate of him to, check on me and see if I was safe. We spoke the next day, which was Sunday. And the conversation started normally, I think I would say. It was a phone conversation, not texting. We actually spoke. And we were talking about having lunch the same day, meeting up for lunch, and, just trying to see if we could carry over the conversation to see if we both would enjoy ourselves as much as we did the night before, as far as the conversation goes. And I noticed that he got a little quiet. He said, well, I have something to tell you. I said, okay, what's that? He said, what are you looking for first before I tell you? And I said, well, I'm looking to meet someone with whom I can connect, start as friends, see where it goes. We continue to talk, and if it leads to something more serious, fine. If it doesn't, that's okay. Well, he said, well, I don't want to waste your time. I want to confess that I'm married. And I said, really? And he said, I thought you knew that. And I said, no, I didn't know that. He said, I had on my ring last night. And I said, oh, no. No, no, no. No, you didn't. You did not have on a ring, because had you had on a ring, we would not have had the conversation that we had, nor would we have exchanged numbers, because I always check for a ring, always. And since he couldn't convince me that I saw the ring, which he didn't have on, he then said, well, I thought you knew. And I called him on it. I said, no, you did not think that I knew. You knew I didn't know, or you wouldn't have started the conversation with, I have a confession that I want to make. Think about it just for a second. If I know that you're married, why would you say, well, I have a confession? Come on. So, of course, I bid him farewell and found out that he was, before, I bid him farewell, I did ask some questions of him, even though I felt like there was nothing else that we could talk about that would advance our relationship. I was just curious. I wanted to know the truth. And he told me that he was divorced, but that he had remarried. And I said, yeah, see, that's the part you left out. And after that, of course, we haven't spoken, and I deleted his number because we don't have anything to talk about. Now, all of that to say, I'm just curious now how people, one, approach marriage, number two, how they view marriage after taking that step. And of course, I don't feel like these three guys or these three incidents that I have represent the majority of men or women, and how they approach marriage or how they feel about their vows. I'm just curious to hear from other people whether you're in a marriage, planning to be married, whether you have been married, or if for whatever reason you have decided that marriage is not what you want. I would like to know what you're thinking. I think it's just so fascinating because people's opinions on marriage, I feel, have changed. I don't know of many people who see themselves getting married now or even wanting to be, and definitely not being married for 40, 50 years, which was quite common for our great grandparents and grandparents. I just think it's a new day and age. I personally don't feel that marriage itself is antiquated. What I do feel is the traditional marriage that tends to follow societal rules and what we've been told marriages should be have changed. I think there are more and more people, both single and collectively as couples, who are deciding that they may want something a little bit different. Whatever that may mean for that particular couple or for that individual. I don't think stepping out on your spouse, cheating, is the way to go about that, because in that instance, I feel like it's selfish, of course, because the spouse, whether it's the wife or the husband who's being cheated on, isn't a part of that decision. That's something that one person is doing. So I don't agree with the adultery. However, I am curious to know, and I may interview someone who is willing to open up about this. I'm interested in knowing if people are just seeking more non-traditional unions, i.e., threesomes, swinging, open marriages. I think a lot of it goes on, and I think it's more so than we know. And I think that it's been going on for a long time. I just feel like a lot of people don't talk about it for whatever reason. It may be fear of judgment, um, or some people just may be very private about it. I do think that with the technology that we have and the media outlets that we have, the social media outlets, that we're learning more and more about it. I still am planning to attempt to speak with some people who are currently engaging in that type of behavior, because I would just be fascinated to know the dynamics of the marriage. But my question again is, married the new single? Have the rules changed? Is it okay to step out and have an affair or a fling on the side? Is it okay if there's no emotional attachment and it's just physical? Is it okay if you only do it once and never tell your spouse about it? I'm not sure. Mine is not coming from a place of judgment in wanting to know people's answers or responses to these questions. Mine is genuinely an interest, a curiosity in getting to know. However, I will say that as far as the three incidents that I have, I do find myself, and I did at the time, judging the three men who attempted to be with me, even though they were married. Again, typically, I'm not judgmental, but in that case, I did judge them. I felt like they were pretty crappy people. I thought it was pretty shitty, to say the least, that you would be married and just disregard all of that in order to be with me or, whomever. I'm speaking of my personal experience with these three gentlemen, but still fascinating to me. I want to know the psychology. What are the rules? What are the rules? What's the breaking point? What's the deal breaker for some people? For some people, cheating is. For some people, it's not. There are people who go through this and their marriages may get stronger as a result when they work through it. Then there are some people, it just takes that one time and they're out. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer or right or wrong way to approach it or deal with it. I'm just curious to know people's opinions on it. Turn on your notifications. Please like and subscribe. And I would like to thank you so much for joining me for the Sunshine Sessions, and hopefully next time, well, hopefully there will be a next time and you'll join me again. Thank you. I'm Sunshine Jackson. See you next time. Bye-bye.